Welcome back. I'm still with my old friend, the outstanding Alex Phillips, fellow talk presenter, of course. Now, Alex, before we actually get to the American War of Independence, the stupidity of Starmer in sending those 100 twonks over to the key swing states, let's our previous discussion about Chris Kaba. Let's remind ourselves of what the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage told Mike Graham on this station on The Breakfast Show this morning.
What was astonishing was for the charge to be murder. At worst, manslaughter.
Yeah.
You know, if they thought he'd fired the gun without sufficient danger, there might have been a clause for manslaughter, but to have brought murder, what really shocked me, after that jury came to their very rapid verdict, they gave the judge a note that they wanted to be read out, saying that the jury believed unanimously that this case should never have come to court. The judge didn't even read it out.
Unbelievable.
The judge actually pointedly refused to read it out, and good for the jury. Good for the jury. That case, never mind manslaughter, it should never have gone to court. For the jury to have so swiftly come to their decision, their correct decision, and to be so angry that they were even there in the first place, that tells the story. And the judge refuses to read it out because he's embarrassed about British justice. That's why.
Not just that, but, you know, there's something else I'm going to say. And this might shock some people to hear it, but you know what? I'm getting fed up with what's going on in this country, so I'm just going to say it.
Go on.
I ask myself if this had been a black officer and the driver of the car had been white, whether that would have ever made court at all, let alone a murder charge. That is my suspicion, that it probably wouldn't have done. I don't know that for sure. But if my suspicion is the case, if that is true, if what was motivating all of this from the beginning was this racial justice cancer we've got in our society, then what we have seen just take place for the last 2 years is the show trial and persecution of a man because he's white.
Yeah, I tell you, that is well worth debating. You're absolutely right to bring that point up. Now, let's move on to, as I say, the American War of Interference. Donald Trump, quite rightly furious that... this is the stupidity of Starmer. Now, we know that 100 Labour twonks have been sent to the American key swing states to campaign for Kamala Harris in a bid to swing the presidential election in her favour and defeat Donald Trump. As I said earlier in the week, sending 100 Labour volunteers to those key swing states almost guarantees Donald Trump victory. I mean, it won't. The worst thing about it is it won't make any difference. But Starmer said, oh, yes, what a stupid thing to do. So when Trump wins, and it looks increasingly as if it's a matter of when as opposed to if, he's ahead, and Kamala's screwing it up in spades. So let's be a little bit more circumspect, if Trump wins, and it's looking good for him, you know, what does that do to the special relationship between Britain and America? Trump, you know, he's a hail fellow, well met. He'll smile and he'll laugh, but he's like an elephant. He doesn't forget. He holds grudges. Starmer, it's just ridiculous what he's done here. And also, Labour said, oh, well, they're only volunteers. They're doing it on their spare time. That Labour recruited them. Big recruit. We'll give you houses. Oh, no, but nobody was paid. It turns out Morgan McSweeney, or Boatface, or whatever his name is, the new head of Downing Street, the chief of staff there, was paid by the Labour Party to go to the Democrat convention in Chicago. So what Starmer has opposite of statesmanship, it's pathetic. He's the Prime Minister, not a student activist.
Well, you know, first of all, I would say, I think when people keep typecasting Donald Trump as sour and holding grudges, I don't think he's that at all. I say quite to the contrary. The evidence has it that he sat down and met Keir Starmer and David Lammy when they were over in Washington quite convivially, and he wasn't even president. He met them despite all the disgusting things that David Lammy has said about him. If you look at his pick for vice president, this is a man who was really dragging Trump over the coals and had very few kind words to say about him in his political career, but Trump said, look, that's the man who's got talent. I'm going to back him, and not just back him. I reckon he could be a future president. So this idea that he's prickly and thin-skinned and hold grudges, I don't think is true at all. I think he's quite robust, says what he thinks, and actually lets bygones be bygones and puts sensible getting on and focusing on the job in hand in front of him instead. I think he's a man who, if he held grudges, there are way too many people who have come after him that his whole time would be kept, very busy doing that. So I don't like that typecast of him. I don't agree with it. I think it's yet another Donald Trump trope that gets put about the place. But when it comes to what they've done here, I mean, does it amount to election interference? Well, kinda. Is it really bad optics? Well, yes. Is it going to make a difference? Probably not at all.
No, it won't, no.
What it exposes is something that's been going on for ages, Kev. When it comes to the left-wing governments, and by left-wing, scratch that word out and put the globalists, okay, in the West especially, as they have their secret cabals and cohorts, and they all get together and they all discuss and they all plan, just like Barack Obama was rolled out to interfere in Brexit, just as Keir Starmer was running over to have his negotiations with Michel Barnier during the whole Brexit time, as was Nicola Sturgeon. There's something about the left wing of politics, okay, in the West, that they constantly do this. They cook up their narratives. They cook up their conspiracy theories. Oh, Russian interference. That's the only way to explain Brexit, and Trump must have been the Kremlin, not the will of the people. It's about time the right wing of politics started to do the same and say, we're going to together as well. And actually, I'm glad to see that on the continent of Europe, all of those populists who have been smeared as all being far right and dangerous, when basically they just represent the politics of 10 years ago, which is control your borders and prioritize your people, why don't you, and don't self-flagellate at the altar of deindustrialization to save the blimmin' planet. When it comes to those populists, we are beginning to see them turning around and saying we are going to start working together, because the only way to break the stranglehold of these behemoths like the European Union and the UN is going to be for the proper democratic representatives, the people who believe in the nation state as the best unit of democracy, to get together and defend it together.
Absolutely. I heard that old lefty Paul Mason, the old BBC guy, on Julia's show this morning, and he was saying, what do you think is, Julia, you've got to understand, this is about the international socialist movement. Give me a break. Give me a break. I mean, these people suffer from arrested development. They get to the age of about 14 and they never get any more mature. Forget it. How is that international socialist movement going? Not all that well, really.
Well, no, but this is the thing. It isn't going well when actually democracy gets to win out. Like I said, Austria just voted for the Populist Party. Have they got the leader? No. Geert Wilders' majority. He's a sort of leader as such, but he's forced into coalitions. You saw what they did when they all clubbed against Rassemblement in France to make sure Marine Le Pen's party couldn't do well in that snap election. So even though people keep electing over and over again, voters keep voting for the people who want to defend borders and put their people first, the international socialist movement is colluding to try and stop them. And once upon a time, if I'd heard myself say that, I'd think, get a grip, Alex, take the tinfoil hat off, love, go have a cup of tea and run yourself a long bath. But the more I look at this, the more I look at the narratives that they spread, the more I look at this collective ill will against anybody who believes in defending the integrity and sovereignty of a country, the more I'm beginning to think, actually, the international socialist movement will stop at nothing. They collude, they collaborate, and frankly, it needs to stop. And we need to be alive to this, and our right-wing politicians need to be alive to this.
Absolutely. And what is the worst insult in their armoury that they tend to level against people like you and me? You're populists. You're populists. The policies that you support are populist. What does populist mean? It means policies that are popular with the people. So it tells you all you need to know about lefties. They hate policies that are popular with the people.
They don't say populist anymore. They used to say populist.
Oh, they've got a new word, have they?
It's far right now. It's just
far right. Yeah. No such thing as that.
I miss the days of being a populist. I'm now just Barbie Nazi.
Barbie Nazi. Right, well, I'm still talking to Barbie Nazi, and we're going to talk about the migrant crisis when we come back. You guys stay right where you are.